Buddhism, known as a path to enlightenment, has its origins in the extraordinary life and final days of the Buddha. Few realize that his last days were filled with deep teachings and mysterious events that still fascinate scholars and followers. This exploration looks into the moments leading to his passing, the meaning of his last meal, his conversations with his close disciple Ananda, and the heartfelt goodbyes that reflect his lasting wisdom. As we uncover his final teachings and the message of impermanence, we'll consider how these insights apply to our lives today. From archaeological findings to insights across different faiths, this journey seeks to understand how the Buddha's legacy continues to inspire people worldwide. Before we talk about the history of how Buddha passed away, make sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video so more people will be able to learn about Buddha's lasting wisdom. The historical context of the Buddha's final days is rooted in ancient India around the 5th century BCE, a time marked by significant social, political, and cultural changes. During this period, various kingdoms and republics existed, each with its own system of governance and social structure. The dominant powers included the kingdoms of Magadha and Kosala, which were often engaged in political maneuvering and conflict. This environment of evolving states and interactions helped shape the philosophical ideas that were emerging at the time. The Buddha's final days occurred during a time when his teachings had gained a significant following. Many individuals from different social backgrounds, including kings, merchants, and ascetics, were drawn to his message of compassion, mindfulness, and the path to enlightenment. This was also an era when various ascetic traditions and religious movements were flourishing, prompting people to seek deeper understanding and spiritual fulfillment. The Buddha's approach, emphasizing direct experience over ritual, appealed to many and contributed to the growing interest in his teachings. In the historical records, the Buddha's last journey, known as the Mahaparinirvana, highlights both his final teachings and the manner in which he addressed his disciples. He emphasized the importance of self-reliance, urging them to be their own refuge and to understand the nature of suffering and impermanence. This final discourse reassured his followers of the continuity of his teachings even after his passing. This moment marked a pivotal transition in the history of Buddhism, as it prompted his followers to organize his teachings and further spread them throughout the region. Overall, the broader historical context of the Buddha's final days showcases a rich tapestry of cultural shifts and spiritual seeking, reflecting the diverse landscape in which his teachings took root. It serves as a reminder of the enduring need for guidance and understanding in the face of life's inevitable changes. Buddha's teachings emerged in a time of significant political and cultural transformation in ancient India, around the 5th century BCE. During this period, the region was characterized by the rise of various kingdoms and the influence of diverse philosophical ideas. This context shaped how his teachings were received and spread among different communities. The social structure of India at the time was heavily influenced by the caste system, which defined people's roles and opportunities based on their caste. In contrast, Buddha's message of compassion, equality, and the potential for enlightenment for all individuals resonated with many who felt marginalized. It offered a new framework for understanding life that challenged existing norms and provided hope for social mobility and spiritual awakening. Additionally, the historical political landscape involved the decline of Brahmanical authority and the questioning of traditional rituals and practices. Many growing urban centers were pivotal in facilitating discussions and exchanges of ideas. Buddha's teachings, focusing on personal experience and ethical conduct rather than strict adherence to rituals, attracted not only followers from various social backgrounds, but also intellectuals searching for deeper meaning in their lives. As his teachings spread, they were adapted to different cultural contexts, further influencing their reception. The incorporation of local customs and the engagement with other philosophical paths, such as Jainism and early Hinduism, enriched Buddhism's appeal. Hence, the political and cultural climate of the era not only provided a fertile ground for the growth and adaptation of Buddha's teachings, but also allowed those teachings to address the deep-seated concerns of society at that time. In the years leading up to the Buddha's death, the Sangha, or community of monks and followers, experienced significant growth and development. Founded by the Buddha himself, the Sangha was initially composed of a small group of dedicated practitioners who embraced his teachings, known as the Dharma. As the Buddha traveled throughout northern India, sharing his insights and experiences, more people were drawn to his message, leading to an increase in the number of monks and lay supporters within the community. By this time, the Sangha had established rules and guidelines to maintain discipline and harmony among its members. The Vinaya, which is the Buddhist code of monastic discipline, provided a framework for ethical conduct and communal living among monks. This structure helped foster a sense of order and purpose, while allowing the community to live in accordance with the principles taught by the Buddha. The support and respect from the surrounding lay communities also contributed to the Sangha's stability and growth. As the Buddha's teachings spread, the Sangha became more diverse, including individuals from various social backgrounds and different walks of life. This diversity enriched the community, as each member brought unique perspectives and experiences to their practice. However, this period also presented challenges, as differing opinions and interpretations of the Buddha's teachings sometimes led to disagreements. The Buddha encouraged open dialogue and understanding, helping the Sangha navigate these complexities while remaining focused on their shared goal of spiritual awakening. The years leading up to the Buddha's death saw the Sangha evolve into a more structured and diverse community. With its growing membership, established practices, and the integration of various perspectives, the Sangha was better equipped to spread the teachings of the Buddha. Its foundational principles still resonate today, offering pathways for individuals seeking understanding, connection, and spiritual growth. In Buddhism, the life of the Buddha, particularly his final days, is rich with lessons and insights. As he approached the end of his life, several signs indicated that his passing was near. These signs are instructive, not only for understanding the historical Buddha, but also for reflecting on our own lives and mortality. One significant sign was the experience of physical weakness. The Buddha, while known for his strength and vitality, began to show symptoms of illness. He experienced a feeling of fatigue and a decline in health, which is common narratives in accounts of his final days. This physical change served as a reminder that all beings are subject to aging and death. Another important sign was the Buddha's meditation on impermanence. He clarified to his disciples the nature of life's transiency, emphasizing that all things arise and pass away. During this time, he offered teachings that centered on understanding suffering, impermanence, and the path to liberation. This moment was crucial for his community. It allowed them to internalize these teachings as the essence of his legacy. Lastly, the Buddha gathered his disciples to deliver his final teachings, known as the last instructions. He emphasized qualities like mindfulness and compassion, urging them to continue their practice and care for one another. By doing this, he provided clear guidance to his followers on how to maintain their spiritual journey even after his physical presence would no longer be among them. These signs remind us not only of the Buddha's journey, but also of our own. They prompt us to reflect on the impermanent nature of life, encouraging us to practice compassion and mindfulness in our daily encounters. Understanding these teachings can help us face our own changes and transitions with greater awareness and acceptance. Buddha's final journey, often referred to as his parinirvana, was a significant moment in Buddhist teachings. In the weeks leading up to this journey, the Buddha engaged in self-reflection and encouraged his followers to continue their practice. He emphasized the importance of mindfulness and understanding the impermanence of life, which was central to his teachings. This preparation was both spiritual and physical, showcasing his deep awareness of his impending passing. Spiritually, Buddha focused on the concepts of detachment and acceptance. He reassured his disciples that all things are transient and that life naturally culminates in death. By emphasizing the importance of practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, he guided his followers on how to cultivate insight, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. This preparation was not only for himself, but also aimed at ensuring his disciples were ready to continue the teachings in his absence. Physically, Buddha maintained a routine that mirrored his values. He ensured he was comfortable and accepted whatever nourishment was available without attachment to indulgence. This simple lifestyle reflected his teachings about moderation and non-attachment to material comforts. When he sensed that his time was coming, he prepared by choosing a location that held significance, sitting beneath a tree in the village of Kushinagar, where he would ultimately pass. During this time, Buddha encouraged conversations with his disciples about the fundamentals of his teachings and the importance of striving towards enlightenment. His demeanor exemplified calmness and serenity, setting an example for his followers on how to approach mortality with grace and understanding. This final preparation serves as a reminder of the core teachings of Buddhism, that life is fleeting and mindfulness in every moment is essential. When the Buddha approached the end of his life, his closest followers and disciples experienced a range of emotions and reactions. Many, including prominent disciples like Ananda and Sariputta, felt profound sorrow. They were deeply connected to the Buddha and had relied on his guidance and teachings throughout their spiritual journeys. The thought of losing their teacher brought feelings of grief and fear regarding the future of the community and the continuation of the teachings. Despite their sorrow, some followers also exhibited a sense of reflection and acceptance. The Buddha had often spoken about the impermanence of life, and his impending death served as a real-life reminder of this core teaching. His disciples were encouraged to contemplate the nature of existence, recognizing that all things, including life itself, are subject to change. This moment prompted many to deepen their understanding and practice of the Dharma. Additionally, the Buddha used this time to impart final teachings that would guide his followers after his passing. He emphasized the importance of self-reliance in spiritual practice and encouraged them to seek the truth within themselves. His last words, urging his disciples to work diligently for their own liberation, conveyed a message of empowerment and responsibility. This transition was not just a time of loss, but also a pivotal moment for growth and continuity within the Buddhist community. The reactions of the Buddha's followers combined sadness with reflection and a call to action. They were given the opportunity to remember the teachings, embrace impermanence, and take personal responsibility for their spiritual journeys, shaping the direction of Buddhism for generations to come. Buddha's last meal is an important historical event that draws significant interest within Buddhist traditions. According to various accounts, it is believed that Siddhartha Gautama, who later became known as the Buddha, shared his final meal in a village called Kusinara. The traditional account states that he was offered a meal that included a type of mushroom or potentially spoiled food, which ultimately led to his demise shortly after. There are differing interpretations about the nature of this last meal. Some Buddhist texts suggest it was a deliberate act of generosity from a blacksmith named Kunda who offered the meal to the Buddha. In this context, the meal is viewed as a significant moment, showing the importance of giving and the deep trust the Buddha had in his followers' intentions. On the other hand, some debates exist over whether the food was indeed contaminated or simply not well prepared, leading to discussions about its implications for health and well-being in Buddhist teachings. Another area of controversy revolves around the specifics of the meal itself, Different traditions may vary in their accounts of the exact nature of the food. For example, some texts label it as potentially the Last Supper, highlighting it as a pivotal point for understanding impermanence and the concept of death in Buddhism. In contrast, other interpretations stress the significance of mindful consumption and the relationship to the idea of intention in what one eats. Ultimately, Buddha's last meal serves as a reflection of larger themes within Buddhism, such as the nature of life, death, and the importance of compassion and intention in our actions. Whether viewed through the lens of generosity, health practices, or philosophical significance, there is much to learn from this final chapter in the life of the Buddha. It invites followers to contemplate their own lives and thoughts surrounding nourishment, intention, and the transient nature of existence. The theory that the Buddha was poisoned is a topic of interest among scholars and practitioners of Buddhism, and it has gained traction for several reasons. One primary factor is the historical context surrounding the Buddha's life and teachings. The traditional accounts found in various scriptures suggest that the Buddha passed away due to natural causes related to old age and illness. However, as scholars have analyzed these texts, the inconsistency in accounts has prompted questions about the circumstances of his death. Another contributing factor is the tensions and conflicts that existed during the Buddha's time, particularly involving different sects and rulers. Some theorists suggest that political motives or rivalries could have led to foul play. The possibility of poisoning introduces complexities to the narratives, allowing for discussions about the socio-political dynamics of ancient India. This interpretation draws on a broader historical theme in which influential figures may have met untimely ends due to the actions of others. Additionally, the fascination with the mysterious aspects of Buddha's life and death may play a role in the growth of this theory. The idea of poisoning stimulates curiosity and engages those who wish to explore deeper meanings behind his teachings and legacy. As new research, archaeological discoveries, and interpretations of ancient texts emerge, the discourse surrounding the Buddha's death continues to evolve, keeping the conversation alive. Ultimately, while the theory of poisoning remains speculative, it serves as a reminder of the diverse interpretations within Buddhist history and the importance of questioning and exploring different perspectives for a richer understanding of the teachings and their implications in the modern world. The last meal of the Buddha is recorded as being a meal containing a dish of spoiled food called Sukkaramadava. This meal was offered to him by a blacksmith named Kunda while he was staying near Kusinara. Although the exact ingredients are not definitively known, interpretations suggest it may have included some type of mushroom or fermented food. The condition of the food, described as spoiled, has led to various interpretations and discussions about its implications. The significance of this meal extends beyond its physical content. It highlights concepts of impermanence and the nature of existence, which are central to Buddhist teachings. The Buddha's acceptance of this food serves as a reminder of the inevitability of death and the importance of mindfulness in all aspects of life, including the act of eating. The caution surrounding food and consumption suggests that our relationship with food can reflect deeper spiritual lessons. Additionally, the fact that the Buddha passed away shortly after this meal can stimulate reflection on the power of karma and the consequences of one's actions. In this case, Kunda is known to have been deeply affected by the event, but the Buddha reassured him that he had acted with good intention. This emphasizes the Buddhist principle of intention behind actions, showcasing that even in the face of an uncertain outcome, one's good intentions can be meaningful. Ultimately, Buddha's last meal reminds followers of the interconnectedness of all experiences and the importance of living with awareness and compassion. It encourages a consideration of how food and sustenance play a role in our spiritual journey, inviting practitioners to reflect on how they nourish both their bodies and minds. The notion of a conspiracy against the Buddha towards the end of his life is not a widely supported view in mainstream Buddhist teachings or historical texts. Most traditional accounts focus on the teachings and experiences of the Buddha during his life, especially in his later years, rather than suggesting a conspiratorial plot. There are some references in certain texts that describe conflicts between the Buddha and specific groups or individuals, often rooted in political or social tensions of the time. For example, it is documented that some members of the ruling class and certain Brahmin groups were opposed to the Buddha's teachings, which challenged the established social hierarchy. These tensions may be interpreted as opposition rather than a concerted conspiracy against him. Additionally, Buddhist scripture discusses challenges and criticism faced by the Buddha, including instances of hostility and misunderstanding from various quarters. However, these conflicts generally arise from differing views on spirituality, social structure, and power dynamics, rather than indicating a deliberate conspiracy against his life. The primary focus in Buddhist texts tends to be on the Buddha's response to these challenges through compassion, dialogue, and teaching. In conclusion, while there are narratives that portray moments of conflict, the idea of a conspiracy against the Buddha is not a prominent theme in Buddhist literature. Rather, the discussions center on his teachings, the nature of human suffering, and the importance of understanding and compassion in the face of adversity. These themes provide a framework for exploring the challenges inherent in spiritual practice. Throughout the history of Buddhism, the figure of the Buddha, or Siddhartha Gautama, has sometimes faced hostility. There are a few possible motivations behind those who may have wished to harm him. Firstly, Siddhartha Gautama was a prince who renounced his royal life seeking enlightenment. This decision may have caused resentment among those who valued traditional power structures, as his teachings challenged the status quo and promoted ideals of equality and personal liberation. Those in positions of power might have felt threatened by his message that encouraged individuals to seek their own understanding rather than relying on established authorities. Secondly, the Buddha's teachings often critiqued certain religious practices and beliefs prevalent at that time, particularly in the Hindu culture of ancient India. Individuals who were deeply invested in those traditions might have viewed him as a disruptive figure who undermined their way of life. This could have led to animosity, resulting in attempts to harm him or his message. Lastly, the nature of spiritual awakening and transformation can provoke fear or discomfort in others. The Buddha's insights into suffering, attachment, and the path to enlightenment might have unsettled those who were not ready to confront these difficult truths about existence. This discomfort can sometimes manifest as hostility toward those who embody or promote such ideas. Understanding these motivations can help us reflect on the complexities of spiritual change and the resistance that often accompanies profound shifts in thought and belief. When exploring the variances in accounts of the Buddha's death, it's important to recognize that these differences arise from diverse traditions and interpretations within Buddhism. Some texts describe his final moments with clarity and purpose, emphasizing peace and acceptance, while others might include elements that seem more enigmatic or complex. These variations can create a sense of mystery around his death, reflecting the multifaceted nature of Buddhist teachings and beliefs about impermanence. For example, some accounts suggest the Buddha passed away in a calm and serene manner, surrounded by his disciples, urging them to continue their practice without attachment. Other narratives introduce more perplexing aspects, such as questions of his illness, the nature of his final teachings, or even suggestions of conflict among his followers. These discrepancies may lead some to interpret his death as indicative of deeper, unresolved tensions within the early community, highlighting the challenges facing those seeking enlightenment. The differing stories about his last moments serve not only to intrigue, but also to illustrate key Buddhist concepts, such as suffering and the nature of reality. By examining these diverse accounts, practitioners and scholars have opportunities to reflect on what the Buddha's life and death reveal about the human condition, the dualities of peace and conflict, understanding and confusion. Ultimately, this diversity in narratives encourages ongoing inquiry and dialogue about the teachings he left behind. Rather than presenting a single definitive story, the varied accounts of his death invite us to probe deeper into the themes of Buddha's life. They acknowledge that the path to understanding can include both clarity and ambiguity. By engaging with these perspectives, we can explore how they resonate with our own experiences and what lessons we might draw from the complexity of his legacy. During his final days, the Buddha imparted teachings that emphasize the importance of mindfulness, ethical conduct, and the inevitability of change. One of his core messages was the significance of being fully present in each moment. This practice, often referred to as mindfulness, encourages individuals to observe their thoughts and feelings without attachment. By cultivating mindfulness, one can learn to respond to life's challenges with clarity and equanimity. Another fundamental teaching he shared was the principle of impermanence, or anicca. The Buddha reminded his followers that all things are subject to change, including our experiences, emotions, and relationships. Understanding this concept can help us develop a healthier relationship with the ups and downs of life, leading to greater acceptance and less suffering. Additionally, the Buddha highlighted the importance of ethical conduct, known as sila. He encouraged his followers to live with compassion and integrity, guiding them to refrain from harmful actions towards themselves and others. By practicing kindness and understanding, individuals can contribute to a more harmonious world. In his final discourse, the Buddha urged his followers to be their own refuge. He emphasized the importance of personal responsibility in one's spiritual journey, encouraging individuals to rely on their insights and experiences rather than looking to external authorities for guidance. This teaching inspires self-reliance and encourages each person to cultivate their understanding and compassion as they navigate their paths in life. The final journey of the Buddha, often referred to as the Mahaparinirvana or Great Parinirvana, is rich with important spiritual teachings. As he traveled towards his last destination, he took the opportunity to impart wisdom to his followers. One of the key lessons he emphasized was the importance of impermanence, or anicca. By facing his own death, the Buddha demonstrated that all things, including life and existence, are transient. This realization helps followers appreciate the present moment and recognize that clinging to life or experiences can lead to suffering. During this journey, the Buddha also highlighted the importance of compassion and community. He shared insights on how to support one another, stressing the significance of maintaining strong relationships with fellow practitioners. He encouraged his disciples to remind one another of the teachings and remain steadfast in their practice, demonstrating that spirituality is often cultivated within a supportive community. Another significant teaching from this journey was the importance of mindfulness and personal responsibility. He urged his followers to reflect on their own actions and intentions, reinforcing the idea that each individual plays a role in their spiritual development. This focus on personal accountability invites practitioners to cultivate mindfulness in their daily lives, fostering a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. Ultimately, the Buddha's final teachings were a call to live with awareness, compassion, and clarity. His journey to parinirvana serves as a reminder that learning never ceases, even in the face of death. By embodying these teachings in his final moments, he left a legacy that encourages all of us to seek wisdom and understanding throughout our lives. In his final months, the Buddha emphasized several key philosophical concepts that reflect the essence of his teachings and the path to enlightenment. One of the most significant ideas is the importance of mindfulness and awareness. He urged his followers to be fully present in each moment, to observe their thoughts and feelings without attachment, as a way to cultivate inner peace and understanding. Another crucial concept is the notion of impermanence, or anicca. The Buddha taught that all things are transient and subject to change. By recognizing that everything, including life itself, is impermanent, individuals can develop a deeper acceptance of life's ups and downs. This understanding also helps diminish attachment and the suffering that comes from clinging to what is fleeting. The Buddha also highlighted the importance of compassion and loving kindness. He encouraged his followers to cultivate these qualities towards all beings, recognizing the interconnectedness of life. In his teachings, he demonstrated that a life guided by compassion not only benefits others, but also brings joy and fulfillment to oneself. Finally, he reinforced the significance of self-reliance in the journey toward enlightenment. The Buddha emphasized that each individual has the capacity to seek understanding and truth within themselves. He encouraged his followers to test his teachings against their own experiences, rather than relying solely on doctrine or tradition. This approach empowers individuals to take responsibility for their spiritual growth and discovery. Buddha's relationship with Ananda is significant in understanding his final messages and teachings. Ananda was one of Buddha's closest disciples and served as his personal attendant for many years. Their connection was built on trust, deep understanding, and mutual respect. Ananda's presence by Buddha's side allowed him to absorb the teachings firsthand, and in many ways, he became a vessel for passing those teachings on after Buddha's passing. As Buddha approached the end of his life, he often spoke to Ananda about the importance of community and discipline within the monastic order. He encouraged Ananda to support others in their practice and to uphold the teachings he had shared. This guidance emphasized the interconnectedness of the community and the vital role that each individual plays in preserving and spreading the Dharma, or the teachings of Buddha. One notable aspect of their relationship is that Ananda was known for his exceptional memory. This ability meant that after the Buddha's death, he was able to recall many of Buddha's discourses and teachings accurately. Ananda's commitment to sharing these teachings ensured that the core messages of Buddhism could be preserved and continue to guide future generations. The first Buddhist council, which aimed to compile these teachings, prominently featured Ananda's recollections, highlighting his crucial role in the transmission of Buddha's wisdom. Buddha's relationship with Ananda deeply influenced his final teachings, focusing on community, individual responsibility, and the preservation of wisdom. Ananda embodied the values of dedication and memory, ensuring that the teachings remained alive and accessible long after the Buddha's physical presence was no longer there. This relationship illustrates the importance of mentorship and the continuing journey of learning and sharing within the Buddhist tradition. In the last days of the Buddha's life, his dialogues with Ananda, one of his closest disciples, hold significant importance. These conversations touch on key teachings and provide guidance for future generations of Buddhists. Ananda, who was known for his sharp memory and deep understanding, often sought clarification on various topics, demonstrating the importance of inquiry in the learning process. One pivotal dialogue occurs when Ananda expresses sorrow over the impending death of the Buddha. The Buddha reassures him by emphasizing the importance of self-reliance and personal practice. He encourages Ananda and other disciples to focus on their own actions and insights, reminding them that they are responsible for their own spiritual growth. This highlights a core Buddhist principle. The path to enlightenment is a personal journey. Another significant conversation involves questions about community and leadership after the Buddha's passing. Ananda asks how the Sangha, or community of monks, should function without the Buddha's direct guidance. The Buddha emphasizes the value of the Dharma, or his teachings, as the true refuge. He reminds Ananda and the other monks that they should rely on the teachings for guidance rather than dependence on any single individual. These dialogues not only illustrate the deep bond between Ananda and the Buddha, but also serve as foundational teachings for the Buddhist community. They reinforce key concepts such as personal responsibility, the importance of community, and the central role of the Dharma in achieving spiritual understanding. As such, they remain relevant for practitioners today, offering insights into navigating the challenges of life and spirituality. Ananda was one of the closest disciples of the Buddha and played a crucial role in preserving and sharing his teachings after the Buddha's death. His experiences and interpretations of the Buddha's teachings significantly influenced the way these teachings were disseminated. Ananda's deep understanding of the Dharma, combined with his ability to recall teachings, made him a vital link between the Buddha's original words and the followers who sought guidance. Following the Buddha's passing, Ananda became instrumental in the First Buddhist Council, where monks gathered to recite and compile the teachings. Ananda's memory was exceptional. He was able to recount many of the Buddha's discourses that might have otherwise been lost. His insistence on accurately conveying the teachings helped ensure that the essence of the Buddha's message was preserved for future generations. This process was essential not only in maintaining the integrity of the teachings, but also in shaping the foundational texts of Buddhism. Moreover, Ananda's interpretations often highlighted the practical application of the teachings in daily life. He emphasized the importance of compassion, mindfulness, and community, encouraging followers to embody these principles. His focus on the relevance of the teachings in a person's life made Buddhism more accessible, helping to attract a wider audience beyond the monastic community. Ananda's way of communicating the Buddha's teachings fostered a sense of belonging and understanding among practitioners. Ananda's contributions were pivotal in preserving, interpreting, and sharing the Buddha's teachings after his death. His role in the First Buddhist Council ensured the teachings would endure, while his emphasis on practical application helped lay the groundwork for the growth of Buddhism as a transformative spiritual practice. Ananda's legacy continues to inspire the way the teachings are understood and practiced today. Buddha's farewell to his followers is a significant aspect of his life that embodies his teachings and philosophy. As he approached the end of his life, Buddha gathered his closest disciples and imparted words of wisdom that highlighted the core tenets of Buddhism. In this moment, he emphasized the importance of self-reliance and personal responsibility in the journey of spiritual growth. Buddha encouraged his followers to be their own refuge. He reminded them that while they might seek guidance from teachers and scriptures, the ultimate path to enlightenment lies within themselves. This reflects his belief in the importance of individual experience and understanding. Buddha taught that reliance on external sources can lead to dependency, while true wisdom comes from direct engagement with one's own mind and reality. Additionally, during his farewell, he discussed the inevitability of change and the nature of impermanence. He expressed a deep understanding that everything is transient, including life itself. This acceptance of impermanence is central to Buddhist thought and reminds practitioners to cherish each moment and to cultivate a mindset of non-attachment. Ultimately, Buddha's farewell encapsulates his life's teachings, reinforcing the basic principles of self-awareness, personal responsibility, and the acceptance of change. His parting words serve as a gentle reminder to his followers to engage fully with their practice and to find peace within themselves, fostering a sense of autonomy in their spiritual journeys. This understanding continues to resonate with those who seek to explore and embody Buddhist philosophy. During the Buddha's final moments, the atmosphere was filled with a mix of reverence, sadness, and contemplation among his community. As he approached his passing, his followers gathered around him, aware that they were witnessing the conclusion of a significant chapter in their spiritual journey. There was a palpable sense of loss as they faced the reality of losing their teacher and guide, the person who had profoundly shaped their understanding of life and the path to enlightenment. Alongside this sadness, there was also a deep sense of gratitude. His disciples reflected on the teachings he had imparted and the wisdom they had gained throughout their time together. They recognized the importance of his guidance and the transformation he had facilitated in their lives. This acknowledgement brought forth feelings of appreciation for the lessons learned, emphasizing the lasting impact of his teachings. Additionally, there was an atmosphere of resolve and inspiration. The Buddha used his final moments to remind his followers of the importance of mindfulness, self-reliance, and continuing the path towards enlightenment. His teachings emphasized that while his physical presence would be missed, the wisdom he shared would continue to guide them. This duality of sorrow and empowerment encouraged the community to embrace their own paths with compassion and commitment, ensuring that his legacy would endure in their practice and understanding. Buddha's farewell words, often summarized as "be a lamp unto yourselves," carry profound significance that has influenced not only his followers, but also cultures around the world. These words encourage individual responsibility in seeking truth and understanding. Rather than relying solely on external authorities or teachings, Buddha invites people to explore their own experiences and insights. This emphasis on personal insight has resonated through centuries, encouraging a sense of introspection and self-discovery. Across different cultures, Buddha's message has found various expressions. In East Asian traditions, for instance, his teachings have been integrated into practices like Zen Buddhism, which stresses meditation and direct experience over theoretical knowledge. Meanwhile, Tibetan Buddhism developed a rich tapestry of rituals and philosophical intricacies that reflect aspects of Buddha's encouragement to seek one's path. Each interpretation honors the core idea of self-exploration while embracing local customs and historical contexts. In Western contexts, Buddha's farewell words have been a source of inspiration in contemporary mindfulness practices. Movement towards mental health and well-being often cites the importance of self-awareness and personal empowerment, aligning closely with Buddha's counsel. Many individuals and therapists draw from these teachings to promote resilience and a clearer understanding of one's emotions, leading to a broader appreciation of Buddhist principles beyond traditional confines. Ultimately, the reverberations of Buddha's farewell words remind us of the enduring relevance of his teachings. They call upon each person to cultivate their own understanding and wisdom, rather than simply adopting beliefs. This pivotal idea fosters a journey of exploration that transcends cultural boundaries, highlighting the universal quest for truth and understanding that resonates for so many today. Buddha's acceptance of his mortality is a significant aspect of his teachings on impermanence, a core principle in Buddhism. Impermanence, or anicca, refers to the idea that all things in life are subject to change and that nothing is permanent. Buddha recognized this truth deeply within himself, particularly as he faced the realities of aging, sickness, and death. Rather than shying away from these inevitable aspects of life, he embraced them, understanding that acceptance of impermanence leads to a clearer perspective on existence. This acceptance allowed Buddha to teach others about the importance of living in the present moment and letting go of attachments. He demonstrated that clinging to life, relationships, or material possessions can lead to suffering. When he acknowledged his own mortality, It underscored the idea that every moment is precious and should be cherished. This viewpoint encourages practitioners to focus on their actions, thoughts, and relationships, fostering a mindful approach to daily living. Buddha's teachings emphasize that acknowledging impermanence can liberate individuals from distress. By accepting that life is transient, practitioners can find peace and balance in the face of change. Through meditation and mindful practices, followers are encouraged to explore their own experiences of change and to cultivate an understanding of how this awareness impacts their lives. Buddha's acceptance of mortality serves as a gentle reminder that life is a series of moments, each impermanent and fleeting. This insight can lead to a more profound appreciation for life as it is, fostering resilience and compassion in the face of life's inevitable changes. By embracing impermanence, one can navigate life's currents with greater ease and acceptance. Buddha's perspective on death offers profound insights that can help us navigate the uncertainties of modern life. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is the concept of impermanence, which emphasizes that all things, including life itself, are constantly changing. By accepting that nothing is permanent, we can develop a more adaptable mindset. This acknowledgement can lessen our fear of the unknown, encouraging us to embrace change rather than resist it. Buddha also taught about the importance of mindfulness in the face of uncertainty. Being present in our daily experiences allows us to fully engage with life as it happens, rather than being consumed by worries about the future or regrets about the past. This practice of mindfulness helps cultivate clarity and composure, enabling us to see situations as they are. As we develop this awareness, we often become more resilient, finding strength in uncertainty rather than feeling overwhelmed by it. Furthermore, the understanding of death in Buddhism is not purely about the end of life. It invites contemplation on how we choose to live in the time we have. Engaging with our mortality can inspire us to act more intentionally, making choices that align with our values and desires. In a world filled with distractions and pressures, this reminder can motivate us to focus on what truly matters, fostering deeper connections with ourselves and others. Ultimately, by reflecting on Buddha's teachings about death, we are encouraged to live more fully and mindfully. Embracing impermanence and the presence of uncertainty can lead us to a greater appreciation of life's experiences, helping us cultivate peace of mind amid the inevitable changes we encounter. This perspective not only enriches our understanding of life, but also equips us to face its uncertainties with grace and resilience. In his final teachings, the Buddha emphasized the concept of impermanence, or anicca, using straightforward and relatable symbols. One of the most well-known comparisons he made was to a river. Just as a river is constantly flowing and changing, so too is life. Every moment is a new experience. Nothing remains the same. This comparison invites us to reflect on how the nature of existence is dynamic, encouraging us to embrace change rather than resist it. Another significant symbol is that of a flower. The Buddha often referred to the fragility and beauty of a flower, which blooms for a brief time before wilting. This image serves as a poignant reminder of the transient nature of life. It reflects the idea that while beauty and joy are part of our experiences, they are also temporary. Acknowledging this can help us cultivate appreciation for the present moment and the connections we share with others. The Buddha also used the metaphor of a candle flame. A candle burns brightly, but eventually it will extinguish. This imagery underlines the idea that life is precious and should be valued, yet it is essential to recognize that all things eventually cease to be. By reflecting on these symbols, we can start to understand that impermanence is a natural part of existence, shaping our experiences and understanding of life. Through these teachings, the Buddha encouraged his followers to develop mindfulness and awareness of the present. By accepting impermanence, we can find peace in the midst of change and cultivate a deeper appreciation for each moment. This understanding allows us to connect with life more fully, letting go of attachments and fostering a sense of freedom. The death of the Buddha, who reached parinirvana at the age of 80, marked a significant turning point in the development of Buddhism as a spiritual tradition. After his passing, the followers of the Buddha faced the challenge of preserving and interpreting his teachings. This led to the formation of various communities and the establishment of a more structured organization, often referred to as the Sangha, which focused on monastic life and the adherence to the Buddha's teachings. One of the immediate impacts of the Buddha's death was the need for the preservation of his teachings. Over the years, various councils were held, with the first Buddhist council being convened shortly after his death. During these gatherings, monks, known as bhikkhus, recited and agreed on the Buddha's teachings, which would eventually be written down in texts known as the Pali Canon. This was crucial for maintaining the integrity of the teachings as they spread across different regions. Buddha's death also opened the door for diverse interpretations and practices. As Buddhism expanded beyond its origins in India, different cultures and societies began to adapt the teachings to fit their contexts. This led to the emergence of various schools of thought, such as Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism, each interpreting the teachings in unique ways while remaining rooted in the core principles established by the Buddha. Finally, the absence of the Buddha encouraged practitioners to explore their own spiritual paths. With the teachings no longer tied to a single individual, followers began to engage with the concepts of impermanence, suffering, and enlightenment on a more personal level. This shift contributed to the development of unique practices like meditation and mindfulness, which have gained considerable popularity in contemporary times, extending Buddhism's influence beyond its traditional boundaries. Through these evolving interpretations and practices, Buddhism has grown into a rich and varied spiritual tradition that continues to touch the lives of many around the world. Buddha's final teachings, often summarized in the concepts of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, continue to influence modern Buddhist practices and beliefs in profound ways. The essence of these teachings emphasizes understanding suffering, its causes, and the paths to overcome it. In contemporary Buddhism, practitioners often focus on mindfulness and compassion, as these qualities directly respond to the suffering described in the First Noble Truth. Mindfulness practices, including meditation and conscious living, are particularly prominent today. They align with Buddha's teachings about awareness and understanding the mind. Many meditation centers and retreats emphasize the importance of being present and observing one's thoughts and feelings without attachment. This reflects Buddha's teachings about achieving enlightenment through personal insight and discipline. Additionally, the ethical guidelines of the Eightfold Path, right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration are often integrated into daily life by modern practitioners. Many engage in social action and community service, demonstrating the teaching of compassion in a practical context. This brings Buddha's message to life in a way that is relevant to current social and environmental challenges. Finally, modern Buddhist communities often focus on inclusivity and adapting teachings to be relevant across diverse cultures. They encourage dialogue on how ancient wisdom can inform contemporary issues such as mental health, grief, and personal growth. This adaptation shows the flexibility of Buddha's teachings, ensuring they resonate with people today while remaining rooted in their original intent. The story of the Buddha's death, known as his parinirvana, has been interpreted and reshaped in various ways by authors, historians, and religious leaders throughout time. This narrative, which traditionally conveys the Buddha's final moments and his entry into nirvana, offers foundational insights into Buddhist teachings on impermanence, suffering, and transcendence. Various interpretations have emerged over the centuries, reflecting the evolving understandings of Buddhism across different cultural contexts. Historically, early texts such as the Pali Canon provide a straightforward account of the Buddha's death, emphasizing the natural process of dying. These texts tend to focus on the teachings he imparted in his last moments, underscoring key Buddhist concepts like mindfulness and the importance of letting go. Historians often analyze these accounts to better understand the cultural and historical environments in which early Buddhism developed. They might explore how the narrative has influenced Buddhist practices and beliefs regarding death and rebirth. In contrast, many authors and religious leaders have taken creative liberties to elaborate on the narrative, emphasizing themes such as compassion and enlightenment. Some scholars argue that these reinterpretations serve to make the teachings more relatable to contemporary audiences, offering practical applications for everyday life. For example, certain modern interpretations may focus on the idea of facing one's own mortality with equanimity, encouraging individuals to reflect on their own lives in the light of the Buddha's teachings. Furthermore, different Buddhist traditions, such as Theravada and Mahayana, may highlight various aspects of the narrative. Theravada practices often emphasize self-liberation, while Mahayana traditions may focus on the Buddha's role as a compassionate guide for all beings. These diverse perspectives not only enrich the story of the Buddha's death, but also provide depth to the understanding of life's transitory nature. Ultimately, the various interpretations of this narrative encourage followers to engage with the fundamental principles of Buddhism and find personal resonance within them. Buddha's teachings on non-attachment offer valuable guidance for navigating contemporary life challenges. Non-attachment does not mean becoming indifferent or disengaged. Rather, it invites us to foster a balanced perspective towards our experiences, emotions, and relationships. In today's fast-paced world, we often become overly attached to outcomes, possessions, or even relationships, which can lead to stress and disappointment. Understanding non-attachment can help us cultivate a sense of peace amid changing circumstances. One practical application of non-attachment is in how we approach our goals and desires. Instead of clinging tightly to a specific outcome, we can focus on the effort we put into our endeavors while remaining open to various results. For example, in work or personal projects, striving for success is important, but allowing ourselves to accept the outcome, whether positive or negative, can reduce anxiety. This acceptance allows us to learn and grow from each experience without the burden of attachment, fostering resilience. In relationships, non-attachment encourages us to appreciate connections without clinging to them. This means valuing what others bring to our lives while recognizing that change is natural. Whether it's a friendship evolving or a loved one moving away, applying non-attachment helps us navigate these situations with grace, letting go of any fear of loss. This approach fosters deeper compassion and understanding as we learn to cherish relationships for what they are in the moment, rather than what we wish them to be. Finally, applying non-attachment to our material possessions can transform our relationship with consumerism. Recognizing that our happiness does not stem from acquiring more things can lead to a simpler, more fulfilling life. This shift in mindset can help us prioritize experiences and connections over material accumulation, resulting in a greater sense of satisfaction and well-being. By integrating non-attachment into our lives, we can develop a healthier, more adaptable mindset that allows us to face challenges with confidence and calmness. Buddha's last journey, known as the Mahaparinirvana, offers profound lessons on compassion and understanding. As he traveled from city to city before his passing, he displayed an unwavering commitment to sharing his teachings. This journey illustrates the importance of remaining present and engaged with others, even in moments of personal transition. Buddha emphasized that compassion is not just about feeling for others, but taking meaningful actions to support their well-being. During this final journey, Buddha addressed those who sought his guidance and answered their questions with patience and clarity. His willingness to engage in dialogue highlights the value of understanding differing perspectives. Buddha encouraged his followers to cultivate a sense of empathy, demonstrating that real understanding comes from active listening and open communication. This interaction fosters deeper connections and helps us appreciate the diversity of experiences that shape each individual's path. Buddha also affirmed the interconnectedness of all beings during his journey. By recognizing that everyone experiences suffering, joy, and the complexities of life, we can cultivate a broader view of compassion. His last teachings served as a reminder that our actions have consequences, and showing compassion to one another can help alleviate the collective suffering of humanity. Understanding our shared vulnerabilities allows us to extend kindness and support, fostering a sense of community and belonging. Buddha's last journey inspires us to practice compassion actively, engage with understanding, and recognize our shared humanity. These teachings encourage us to reflect on how we can incorporate these values into our daily lives, nurturing a more compassionate and understanding world for ourselves and those around us. Buddha's insights on emotional resilience offer valuable teachings that can help individuals navigate the challenges of modern life. At the heart of these insights is the idea of mindfulness, which encourages individuals to be present and aware of their thoughts and feelings without becoming overwhelmed. This practice helps cultivate emotional resilience by allowing people to observe their emotions rather than react impulsively to them. By recognizing emotions as temporary experiences, individuals can reduce their suffering and respond more thoughtfully. Another key teaching from Buddhism is the principle of impermanence. Buddha emphasized that everything in life, including our emotions, is transient. Understanding this can be incredibly liberating, as it reminds us that difficult feelings will pass. This perspective can help individuals face sadness, anxiety, or frustration with greater ease, knowing that these states are not permanent fixtures in their lives. Embracing impermanence can foster a sense of hope and encourage a more balanced approach to life's ups and downs. Compassion is also central to Buddha's teachings and plays a vital role in building emotional resilience. By developing compassion for ourselves and others, we can create a supportive inner environment. This self-kindness encourages individuals to forgive themselves for mistakes and to approach challenges with patience and understanding. When we practice compassion, we also strengthen our connections with others, which can provide essential support during tough times. Lastly, Buddha taught the importance of letting go of attachment. Many of our emotional struggles stem from clinging to certain outcomes or experiences. Learning to let go can relieve the pressure we place on ourselves and reduce feelings of disappointment. By embracing a mindset of acceptance and openness, individuals can approach life with less anxiety and more contentment. These timeless insights can guide anyone seeking to develop greater emotional resilience in today's fast-paced world. After the death of the Buddha, his teachings were preserved and transmitted primarily through oral tradition. His followers, known as monks, took on the responsibility of memorizing the teachings, which include the core concepts of Buddhism as well as the stories of the Buddha's life. This oral tradition was essential in ensuring that his insights and instructions were not lost, especially since they were first delivered in the form of discourses rather than written texts. Around 400 years after the Buddha's death, a significant event known as the First Buddhist Council took place. This gathering of monks aimed to compile and codify the teachings of the Buddha, formalizing the oral traditions into written texts. The primary scriptures that emerged from this council are known as the Pali Canon, which consists of 3 sections: the Vinaya Pitaka, rules for monastic discipline; the Sutta Pitaka, discourses of the Buddha; and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, philosophical and doctrinal analysis. As Buddhism spread beyond India, it adapted to various cultures, leading to the creation of different schools and texts. For instance, the Mahayana tradition emerged with its own scriptures, including the Lotus Sutra and the Heart Sutra, emphasizing compassion and the path to enlightenment for all beings. Meanwhile, the Theravada tradition continued to adhere primarily to the Pali Canon. These diverse interpretations and texts illustrate how Buddha's teachings have evolved, while still being rooted in the original messages. In modern times, the availability of translations and academic studies has made these teachings accessible to a global audience. This not only preserves the core teachings, but also invites an ongoing dialogue about their relevance today. Through practices such as meditation, mindfulness, and ethical living, individuals can engage with the teachings of the Buddha in a direct and personal manner, ensuring that his legacy continues to inspire and guide people on their spiritual paths. The preservation of Buddha's teachings, often referred to as the Dharma, relied significantly on both oral tradition and later written texts. Initially, Buddha's teachings were transmitted orally. This method was common in ancient cultures where students memorized teachings and recited them to ensure accuracy. The emphasis on recollection and recitation helped maintain a strong communal understanding and continuity of the teachings, as followers would gather to discuss and share their insights. This collective memory was vital in safeguarding the essence of Buddha's messages during the early years of Buddhism. As Buddhism spread, especially after Buddha's death, the need for a more permanent record became evident. Around 400 years later, key texts were written down during the Third Buddhist Council in the 1st century before the Common Era. This shift to written form allowed for a broader dissemination of the teachings across different cultures and regions. Written text provided a stable reference point, making it easier for scholars and practitioners to study and engage with the teachings. However, both oral tradition and written texts had their strengths and limitations. Oral teachings allowed for a dynamic and interactive transmission, capturing the nuances of understanding as context evolved. In contrast, written texts could lead to a more rigid interpretation over time, risking the loss of the original context in which the teachings were shared. To address this, Buddhist communities continue to emphasize the importance of both study and practice, remembering that the essence of Buddha's teachings lies in lived experience rather than merely in words. In conclusion, the combination of oral tradition and written texts has played a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of Buddha's lessons. Each method supports the other, ensuring the teachings can endure through the ages while remaining accessible and relevant to all who seek to understand them. By engaging with both forms, practitioners can deepen their connection to the Dharma, cultivating wisdom that is both timeless and practical. Modern scholarship has significantly enhanced our understanding of Buddhism's historical accounts and teachings through careful analysis and a range of methodologies. Scholars engage in textual criticism, examining ancient manuscripts and translations to determine their authenticity and context. This process helps identify the evolution of Buddhist texts over time and sheds light on how historical events and cultural exchanges influenced these teachings. Furthermore, archaeological discoveries contribute to our knowledge of early Buddhism. Excavations of sites like ancient monasteries and stupas provide tangible evidence of the practices and communities that formed around these teachings. Such findings help contextualize the spiritual beliefs within the historical and geographical landscape in which they developed, making it easier to understand how early Buddhism spread across Asia. Additionally, interdisciplinary approaches, including anthropology and sociology, offer insights into how Buddhist practices and beliefs adapt in different cultural settings. These perspectives highlight the dynamic nature of Buddhism, revealing how it has evolved while maintaining core principles. As a result, modern scholars can present a more nuanced view of Buddhism that acknowledges its diverse interpretations and emphasizes its relevance to contemporary society. By blending textual analysis, archaeological evidence, and cultural studies, modern scholarship provides a clearer picture of Buddhism's origins and development. This comprehensive exploration aids practitioners and learners in appreciating the depth and richness of Buddhist teachings today, encouraging a more informed and reflective engagement with the tradition. The narrative of Buddha's death, known as parinirvana, holds significant importance in Buddhism, as it marks the end of his physical existence and the attainment of ultimate enlightenment. In other religious traditions, interpretations and responses to this story can vary based on their foundational beliefs and teachings. In Hinduism, which shares some historical and cultural context with Buddhism, the story of Buddha's death is often viewed through the lens of karma and the cycle of birth and rebirth. Hindus may recognize Buddha as an enlightened being, similar to how they view other incarnations of divinity. His death serves as a reminder of the transient nature of life and the ultimate goal of liberation, or moksha, from the cycle of reincarnation. Christian perspectives might consider Buddha's death in relation to themes of suffering and redemption. While the narratives differ, both traditions speak to the human experience of suffering and the pursuit of a higher truth. Some Christians may appreciate the moral teachings of Buddhism and see Buddha as a wise teacher, albeit from a different theological framework. They might focus on the compassionate aspects of his life and how they align with Christian values. In the context of secular or philosophical belief systems, Buddha's death may be interpreted as an illustration of impermanence and the acceptance of death as a natural part of life. This perspective emphasizes the importance of living meaningfully and ethically in the present moment, rather than focusing solely on a future beyond death. Overall, while the narrative of Buddha's death is primarily significant within Buddhism, it resonates with and invites reflection from other religious and philosophical traditions in various ways. Buddha's final teachings, often referred to as his last words, convey essential insights about the nature of existence, mindfulness, and the importance of inner peace. In these teachings, he encouraged his followers to cultivate awareness, be diligent in their practice, and strive for wisdom as they navigate the challenges of life and death. This focus on personal responsibility and spiritual growth is a common thread in many religious traditions. In Christianity, for example, the final teachings of Jesus emphasize love, forgiveness, and the importance of being present for others. Much like Buddha's teachings, these messages encourage followers to live a life of compassion and to remain spiritually vigilant. Both traditions view the act of living fully and with intention as essential to facing life's inevitable transitions, including death. Similarly, in Hinduism, teachings surrounding the end of life emphasize the cycle of rebirth and the importance of living virtuously. The concept of karma plays a significant role, reminding individuals that their actions influence their future states of being. This parallels Buddha's teachings on mindfulness and ethical conduct, highlighting a shared understanding of cause and effect in life's journey. In Islam, the teachings about death and the afterlife also center around mindful living, illustrating the consequences of one's actions and the importance of sincere intentions. Like in Buddhism, there is a focus on preparing for death through spiritual practices and reflecting on one's life choices. Ultimately, while distinct in their rituals and beliefs, Many faith traditions offer guidance on how to approach life's end with dignity, compassion, and mindfulness, fostering a deeper understanding of existence and our interconnectedness. This universal quest for meaning at life's close invites reflection and inspires seekers to live thoughtfully, regardless of their spiritual path. The cross-cultural exchanges that have taken place over centuries have significantly shaped the interpretation of Buddha's last days. After the death of the historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, around the 5th century BCE, his teachings began to spread beyond the Indian subcontinent to regions such as Central Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia. Each new cultural environment brought its own context, values, and beliefs, influencing how these final moments of the Buddha's life were understood. In many traditions, the events surrounding the Buddha's last days emphasize the themes of impermanence and the importance of mindfulness. For instance, Mahayana Buddhism portrays the Buddha's last teachings as deeply symbolic, underscoring the idea of compassion and guiding practitioners toward enlightenment. Conversely, Theravada Buddhism retains a more historical and direct account, focusing on the actual events and the Buddha's final instructions to his followers. This diversity in interpretation reflects the cultural values and philosophical perspectives of the regions where these teachings were adopted. Additionally, cross-cultural interactions have introduced new artistic and literary elements to the narratives of the Buddha's last days. For example, in some East Asian traditions, the imagery and storytelling surrounding these events have been influenced by local artistic practices and spiritual beliefs. This has led to a richer and more varied representation of the Buddha's life and teachings, making them relatable and accessible to different audiences. Ultimately, these cultural exchanges have enriched the understanding of the Buddha's final days, encouraging a dialogue among various interpretations. This diversity encourages practitioners to reflect on the essence of the teachings, fostering a deeper connection to the principles of awareness, compassion, and wisdom that the Buddha embodied. By acknowledging these influences, we can appreciate how Buddhism continues to evolve and resonate across different cultures and eras. Archaeological evidence plays a crucial role in enhancing our understanding of the time and place of the Buddha's death, traditionally believed to have occurred in Kusinara, which is modern-day Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh, India. One of the key pieces of evidence is the discovery of ancient stupas and monuments in this region, many of which have been dated to the period shortly after the Buddha's passing, around the 5th century BCE. The Mahaparinirvana stupa, which marks the site of the Buddha's death, provides significant insights. Excavations at this site revealed relics and inscriptions that reference the Buddha and his teachings, helping researchers confirm the site's historical and cultural relevance. The presence of many other stupas in the area also suggests that Kusinara was an important pilgrimage site in the centuries following the Buddha's life, indicating a continued reverence for him after his death. In addition to stupas, inscriptions in Brahmi script have been discovered on pillars and stone slabs, some of which date back to the time of Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE. These inscriptions often mention the Buddha and Buddhist teachings, further solidifying the historical significance of Kusinara. They illustrate a growing recognition and veneration of Buddha that developed after his death, marking this area as a foundational site for Buddhist history. Lastly, evidence from ancient texts and writings of travelers, such as Faxian in the 5th century CE and Xuanzang in the 7th century CE, corroborates archaeological findings. Their accounts describe Kusinara, aligning with the location of significant monuments, thereby providing additional historical context. Overall, archaeological findings, inscriptions, and historical texts together offer a clearer picture of the circumstances surrounding the Buddha's death, enriching our understanding of this pivotal moment in Buddhist tradition. The final days of the Buddha are shrouded in historical and spiritual significance, and modern scientific methods have been used to investigate various aspects of this period. One of the primary approaches has been through textual analysis, where researchers examine ancient manuscripts consistent with known historical events. By comparing different translations and versions of the texts, scholars can gain insights into the events leading to the Buddha's death, as well as the cultural and religious contexts in which these accounts were written. Archaeological techniques have also played a role. For instance, excavations at sites believed to be linked to the Buddha's life, including his final resting place, have uncovered artifacts that provide tangible evidence of monastic life and practices during that time. These findings help verify historical details mentioned in Buddhist texts and allow researchers to construct a more accurate picture of the socio-religious environment. Additionally, advances in fields like anthropology and psychology can help contextualize the Buddha's teachings and experiences near the end of his life. For instance, studies on the impact of meditation and mindfulness practices, which the Buddha emphasized, shed light on the potential psychological and emotional states that he might have experienced. These connections can deepen our understanding of the Buddha's insights and their relevance, not just in a spiritual sense, but also in terms of mental health and well-being. Overall, integrating scientific methods with historical study enriches our understanding of the Buddha's final days. It allows us to build a clearer picture of his life and teachings while appreciating the enduring impact of his ideas on future generations. This blending of old texts and modern science invites a curious exploration of spirituality from a nuanced and informed perspective. Discussions about the historical details of Buddha's death, known as parinirvana, have often been based on ancient texts and traditions. However, new research and discoveries could reshape our understanding in various ways. For instance, archaeological findings related to ancient sites associated with Buddhism may provide fresh insights into the context and events surrounding Buddha's final days. These could include evidence of historical practices or artifacts that reflect the rituals and beliefs of his followers at that time. Furthermore, advancements in technology such as carbon dating and other scientific methods of analysis could help clarify the timeline of events in Buddhist history. This might reveal discrepancies in dates or locations mentioned in traditional accounts, prompting scholars to reconsider the historical context of Buddha's death. By combining historical texts with scientific data, researchers might piece together a clearer picture that reflects both the spiritual significance and the factual history. Another aspect that could emerge from ongoing dialogues within the Buddhist community and among scholars is a deeper understanding of the various interpretations of parinirvana. Different Buddhist traditions have diverse views on what Buddha's death signifies for practitioners today. Exploring these interpretations could enhance our appreciation of how his teachings continue to influence personal and communal practices. Ultimately, any new discoveries about Buddha's death could offer not just historical knowledge, but also renewed avenues for spiritual reflection. By understanding the context of his passing, practitioners can glean insights into impermanence and the cycle of life and death, which remain central themes in Buddhist philosophy. Such explorations invite us to engage with these teachings in a way that is both historical and deeply personal. The mystery surrounding the Buddha's death, often referred to as parinirvana, holds significant meaning for his followers today. This mystery serves as a reminder of the impermanence of life, a core teaching in Buddhism. Unlike clear narratives found in other religious traditions, the ambiguity surrounding the details encourages practitioners to reflect on the nature of existence and to find their own understanding of the cycle of life and death. Additionally, the uncertainty encourages followers to appreciate the journey of spiritual practice rather than focusing solely on end goals. When death is viewed as a transformative process rather than a definitive endpoint, it inspires individuals to engage deeply with their spiritual path, fostering a sense of mindfulness and presence in daily life. Followers are motivated to contemplate their own experiences of life, death, and rebirth, creating opportunities for personal growth. Moreover, this mystery fosters a sense of community among practitioners. As followers share their interpretations and insights regarding the Buddha's final moments, they engage in meaningful dialogue that strengthens their connections with one another. This collective exploration reflects the collaborative nature of Buddhist practice, where diverse perspectives can enrich understanding and foster deeper connections to the teachings. Ultimately, maintaining the intrigue around the Buddha's death invites a continuous examination of key concepts like impermanence and interconnectedness. It encourages practitioners to cultivate awareness and compassion in their lives, nurturing a deeper relationship with the teachings and encouraging ongoing exploration of their spiritual journeys. This thoughtful engagement with the mystery becomes a vital aspect of what it means to follow the Buddha's path today. The story of the Buddha's passing, known as the Parinirvana, offers profound teachings that resonate deeply with new generations of seekers. The essence of this story centers around the Buddha's final moments, where he articulated important truths about impermanence and the nature of life. These concepts remain relevant today as they remind individuals that life is transient and encourage them to appreciate the present moment fully. The teachings surrounding the Buddha's passing emphasize the importance of understanding suffering and the path to enlightenment. Many seekers find inspiration in the Buddha's calm acceptance of death as a natural part of life. This perspective helps them confront their own fears and uncertainties about mortality, fostering a sense of peace and acceptance. By seeing the Buddha's life and passing as a model of how to live fully and mindfully, individuals are encouraged to reflect on their own lives and find meaning and purpose. Furthermore, the Parinirvana highlights the importance of community and shared wisdom. The Buddha's final instructions to his disciples resonate with the idea of supporting one another on the path to awakening. This underscores a core principle in Buddhism, that we are interconnected and can benefit from each other's insights and experiences. As new seekers encounter these teachings, they often feel a sense of belonging within a timeless tradition that offers guidance and support. The story of the Buddha's passing continues to draw in new generations through its significant lessons on impermanence, acceptance of death, and the value of community. As individuals grapple with their own questions about life, these teachings provide a solid foundation for understanding and navigating their experiences in a meaningful way. The mystery surrounding the Buddha's death can be seen as a reflection of broader human concerns about mortality in several significant ways. First, the elusive details of his passing raises questions about the nature of life and death itself. The Buddha is revered as an enlightened figure who provided teachings on suffering and impermanence. His death invites followers to reflect on their own lives and the inevitability of death, prompting deeper contemplation on how they face mortality. Second, the circumstances of the Buddha's passing can symbolize the journey toward understanding and accepting death. According to traditional accounts, the Buddha achieved parinirvana, a state of liberation that transcends physical existence. This notion encourages individuals to consider how they view their own mortality and the potential for peace and acceptance in facing the end of life. It suggests that death is not something to be feared, but rather an integral part of the cycle of life, leading to transformation. Furthermore, the ambiguity in the stories about the Buddha's death allows for various interpretations and discussions about meaning and purpose in life. Just as different cultures grapple with the complexities of mortality, the Buddha's death serves as a focal point for exploring existential questions. This inquiry can lead individuals to seek greater understanding and connection with themselves, others, and the world around them. Ultimately, the mystery surrounding the Buddha's death reflects a universal human concern that transcends specific beliefs. It invites all people, regardless of their background, to reflect on their relationship with life and death, encouraging a journey toward acceptance, wisdom, and compassion in the face of mortality. The last days of Buddha, also known as the parinirvana, or the passing into ultimate happiness, have been significant themes in both art and literature throughout Buddhist history. These depictions often focus on the teachings and reflections surrounding his final moments, rather than just the event itself. Artists and writers have aimed to capture the essence of his life and teachings leading up to his death, emphasizing the lessons of impermanence, suffering, and compassion. In Buddhist art, images of the Buddha's parinirvana often depict him lying on his side, surrounded by mourners, and illustrating the emotional weight of his passing. These artworks serve to remind viewers of the transient nature of life and the importance of embracing impermanence. Many sculptures and paintings, particularly in Southeast Asian traditions, have visually interpreted this moment as an opportunity for reflection on the teachings of non-attachment and the cycle of life and death. Literature, including various scriptures and commentaries, also explores the last days of Buddha in detail. The texts describe not only the events that occurred, but also the profound insights he offered during these final teachings. Such writings highlight the significance of mindfulness and the importance of ethical living, encouraging followers to internalize these values even after his physical presence has gone. Through centuries, these artistic and literary representations have contributed to a richer understanding of Buddha's legacy. They invite practitioners and admirers to ponder deep philosophical questions about existence, death, and the nature of reality, keeping the teachings of Buddhism alive and relevant across cultures and generations. Together, art and literature portray a compassionate farewell that underscores the enduring impact of Buddha's life and teachings on spiritual practice and personal growth. Cultural storytelling plays a significant role in preserving the memory of the Buddha's final journey, often referred to as the parinirvana. This journey marks the moment of the Buddha's passing and entry into a state of ultimate peace, which is a pivotal event in Buddhist tradition. Through storytelling, various cultures convey the teachings, values, and insights associated with this event, ensuring that they remain relevant to contemporary audiences. In many Buddhist communities, stories about the Buddha's final days emphasize themes like impermanence, compassion, and the importance of mindfulness. These narratives often feature key moments from his life and teachings, reinforcing the idea that even in the face of death, one can find peace by adhering to the principles of the Eightfold Path. By sharing these stories during festivals, rituals, and educational gatherings, communities not only honor the Buddha, but also inspire individuals to reflect on their own lives. Moreover, storytelling bridges generational gaps, allowing wisdom to be passed down through spoken word, literature, and art. This creates a shared cultural heritage that connects practitioners to the core of Buddhist philosophy. Each retelling often incorporates local traditions and interpretations, giving the stories cultural depth while maintaining their essential messages about the Buddha's teachings. Overall, cultural storytelling is an essential practice in keeping the memory of the Buddha's final journey alive. It acts as a means of teaching important concepts, fostering community, and ensuring that the essence of the Buddha's wisdom continues to endure in everyday life. Different media forms have played a significant role in disseminating and popularizing the Buddha's final teachings, making them accessible to a wider audience. From traditional texts to modern technology, each medium has contributed uniquely to spreading these teachings. Firstly, printed texts such as the Tripitaka and various commentaries have been essential in preserving and transmitting the Buddha's words over centuries. These written records have allowed countless individuals to engage with his teachings directly. Translations into various languages have further expanded accessibility, enabling people from diverse backgrounds to explore Buddhist philosophy. In recent years, digital media has transformed how people connect with Buddhism. Online platforms, including websites, podcasts, and YouTube channels, offer lectures, guided meditations, and discussions on the Buddha's teachings. This shift to digital formats allows for a broader reach and helps engage younger audiences who may prefer learning through technology. Social media also plays a role in sharing quotes, teachings, and insights, fostering a global conversation around Buddhism. Additionally, documentaries and films have introduced viewers to Buddhist concepts and practices in an engaging manner. These visual representations can illustrate the teachings in real-life contexts, making the principles more relatable. Through various media, the core messages of compassion, mindfulness, and understanding have reached far beyond traditional boundaries, inspiring people worldwide to explore and incorporate these teachings into their lives. The evolution of different media forms has made the Buddha's final teachings more accessible and relatable. By combining traditional texts with modern technology, a wider audience can discover and reflect on these timeless principles, encouraging personal exploration and growth. The hypothetical scenario of poisoning a spiritual leader, such as Buddha, raises several ethical questions that resonate deeply with Buddhist principles. First and foremost, it invites reflection on the value of life and the impact of our actions on others. Buddhism teaches the importance of compassion and non-harming, known as ahimsa. The act of poisoning a leader not only endangers a life, but also disrupts the community and teachings surrounding that individual, leading to a cascade of negative consequences. Another ethical consideration involves the motivations behind such an act. Would the intent be to silence a voice of wisdom, undermine moral authority, or fulfill personal grievances? In Buddhism, intentions are crucial as they influence the karmic outcomes of actions. Understanding the underlying motivations can help illuminate the complexities of ethical decision-making and the importance of cultivating a pure heart. Additionally, the situation prompts us to think about the role of spiritual leaders in society. How do we respect and support those who guide us, and what responsibilities do we have in protecting them? This reflects broader questions about the nature of authority and trust within spiritual communities. It also challenges us to consider how we, as individuals, can contribute to a culture of respect and safety for those who inspire our spiritual growth. Lastly, it is worth contemplating how such a scenario aligns with the Buddhist principles of forgiveness and understanding. Even amidst harm or conflict, Buddhism encourages a path of healing and reconciliation, urging individuals to look beyond immediate grievances to foster deeper connections to wisdom and compassion. Thus, while the act of poisoning raises serious ethical issues, it also opens the door for profound reflection on how we can embody the principles of Buddhism in everyday life. The philosophical interpretations of the death of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, offer a nuanced understanding that can both challenge and reinforce existing narratives about his life and teachings. Traditionally, the story of the Buddha's death, or parinirvana, focuses on the peaceful culmination of his life and teachings, emphasizing the ideals of impermanence and the acceptance of death. This narrative serves to inspire followers by presenting death not as something to be feared, but as a natural part of existence. Philosophically, some interpretations delve deeper into the implications of his death, exploring the nature of self and the concept of non-attachment. These interpretations may challenge the notion of an enduring self that continues after death, suggesting instead that the Buddha's passing marks a profound lesson about letting go. This perspective aligns with core Buddhist teachings, which highlight the importance of understanding the cycle of life, suffering, and the ultimate goal of liberation from that cycle. On the other hand, These interpretations can reinforce existing narratives by framing the Buddha's death as a vital teaching moment. His calm acceptance of death is often viewed as the ultimate expression of enlightenment, demonstrating that one can face life's endings with equanimity. This reinforces the teachings of mindfulness and acceptance that are central to Buddhist practice, encouraging practitioners to reflect on their own attitudes towards death and transformation. Overall, philosophical perspectives on the Buddha's death serve to enrich our understanding of his teachings. They invite individuals to engage with the concepts of impermanence, non-attachment, and the nature of reality, encouraging a more profound exploration of what it means to live wisely and meaningfully in the face of life's most significant transitions. The end of the Buddha's life offers deep insights into the philosophical nature of human existence, particularly as it reflects on the concepts of impermanence and acceptance. The Buddha passed away at the age of 80, and his final moments are often described as serene and composed. This tranquil ending illustrates a fundamental Buddhist principle. Everything is impermanent. Understanding that life is fleeting encourages us to appreciate each moment and recognize the transient nature of our experiences. Moreover, the Buddha's last teachings emphasized the importance of mindfulness and ethical living. He reminded his followers to practice compassion, wisdom, and inner peace. These teachings highlight the interconnectedness of all beings and the impact of our actions, not only on ourselves, but also on others. This focus on moral living encourages exploration into how we can create a positive influence in our daily lives and relationships. The manner in which the Buddha approached death can also teach us about acceptance. He emphasized that experiencing suffering, loss, and the inevitability of death is a part of the human condition. Rather than clinging to life or fearing death, we can learn to face these realities with openness. By fostering an understanding of acceptance and letting go of attachments, we can navigate life's challenges with greater ease. Ultimately, the end of the Buddha's life encourages us to reflect on how we engage with the world around us. It invites us to think about our own lives, our values, and the legacy we wish to create. By embracing impermanence, practicing compassion, and accepting the nature of existence, we can cultivate a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment in our lives. Buddha's last journey, known as the parinirvana, offers several key messages about life and death that remain relevant today. One of the primary lessons is the acceptance of impermanence. Throughout his teachings, Buddha emphasized that all things are subject to change, including life itself. This understanding encourages us to appreciate each moment and recognize that attachment can lead to suffering. By accepting the transient nature of life, we can cultivate a deeper sense of peace and contentment. Another important message is the significance of mindfulness and compassion. Buddha's final moments were marked by his calm demeanor, reflecting a deep presence in the moment. He encouraged his followers to practice mindfulness, which allows us to fully engage with our experiences, thoughts, and emotions without becoming overwhelmed. Additionally, showing compassion towards others is essential as it reinforces our interconnectedness and fosters a sense of community and support during challenging times. Buddha also taught the importance of living a life aligned with moral and ethical principles. He encouraged his followers to engage in right action and to refrain from harm to oneself and others. This moral compass provides guidance not just for life, but for facing death with dignity and understanding. By leading a life of integrity, we can approach our own mortality and the mortality of others with a balanced heart and a clear mind. Lastly, Buddha's teachings remind us of the potential for liberation through understanding. His journey signifies that through wisdom and insight, we can transcend the fears associated with death. Cultivating awareness of the nature of existence can help us navigate life's uncertainties with a sense of purpose and calm. The lessons from Buddha's last journey encourage us to embrace impermanence, foster mindfulness and compassion, uphold ethical living, and seek liberation through understanding. Reflecting on the final days of the Buddha can serve as a meaningful opportunity for individuals to contemplate their own lives and spiritual journeys. The Buddha's last days, often referred to as the parinirvana, offer insights into the nature of impermanence, a fundamental principle in Buddhism. By observing how the Buddha approached his own mortality with calm acceptance, individuals can be reminded of the transient nature of life. This understanding encourages a sense of urgency to live fully in the present moment, cherishing experiences without attachment. In his final teachings, the Buddha emphasized the importance of personal responsibility in the pursuit of enlightenment. He encouraged his followers to cultivate their own wisdom and understanding rather than relying solely on others. This message invites individuals to reflect on their own actions, choices, and paths. It prompts an introspective examination of one's values and the way these align with one's daily life. Furthermore, the question of what one leaves behind becomes significant when considering the conclusion of the Buddha's life. His teachings continue to resonate and influence countless lives. This reflection can inspire individuals to consider their own legacy and how they wish to impact the world around them, prompting thoughtful engagement with both personal and universal truths. Finally, the Buddha's final instructions about impermanence, responsibility, and legacy encourage a deeper spiritual contemplation. They invite individuals to explore what it means to live a meaningful life in light of the inevitability of change and death. By doing so, one can find a space for growth, understanding, and acceptance, fostering a deeper connection to their own spiritual path.